the three beverages, the intoxicating part is always the same substance, ethyl alcohol.
You need a drink to have fun.
Hello and welcome to the Field Alcohologist. Today we're something a little bit different. This is called Q&A with the Field Alcohologist. And here I have my producer and music man and son, Christopher.
Hello.
And his buddy, Trevi.
What's going on, guys?
And they want to ask me some questions about alcohol. So this is unscripted, so we'll see where this goes. And but we'll start out with, on some of these YouTube videos, like the watch collectors, they'll say, what's your wristwatch? Well, what wristwatch check? So this is what drink check. So I'm drinking a Modelo with lime.
I'm drinking a summer drink, lemonade and vodka.
And I got a Woodford Reserve. Neat.
Oh, right. He's got a grown-up drink.
Yeah. And my mouth hasn't, or my palate hasn't matured yet. Quite to that level. It'll get there eventually, kid. Okay, so let's do it different this time. Let's do you have the first question. And I'm going to mix up my questions a little more than we rehearsed previously.
Good.
So
Let's see. All right. Let's see. So the first one is the correlation between alcohol and heart rate. How it increases sometimes.
Well, that's interesting. Alcohol is a depressant, and so it usually wouldn't make your heart rate increase. Although I do know that some people who have heart issues and are on certain medications do get the sensation of a racing heart or an irregular heartbeat. I'm a PhD, I'm not a physician. I would guess it's a drug interaction between the alcohol and the drugs that people are on for their heart. Alcohol actually will lower your blood pressure too, so it does have some sort of, not in the long term, you get high blood pressure from it, but when you're actually drinking. And so, that's, they could have something to do with that too.
Oh,
That's a great question. I'm not entirely sure.
Oh, gotcha.
interesting. So one of my questions was, when you get crossfaded, which is smoking weed with alcohol, why does it turn bad so fast for some people?
Okay, so this is an interesting one too. First, let me say we don't know a whole lot about this subject. Okay, so in the research world, we call it the simultaneous use of alcohol and marijuana. I'm starting to actually study this. I did some studies years ago before marijuana was really widely legal. I think the study I did was back when California passed its medical marijuana thing, and that's been, 15, 16. It's been a long time, a lot of years ago. So anyway, we don't really know a lot about the simultaneous use, except there seems to be anecdotal evidence that something called the order of operations is important. And so that means what you take first. And so if you were to smoke first, and again, what you smoke probably makes a difference here too.
Yeah.
So if you're like doing dabs versus, just taking a bong rip or smoking a joint or something, if you smoke first and then drink, people tend to report a better experience. So they don't get as drunk, they don't get as wasted. The flip side of that is when you're already drinking and then you start smoking, you're adding another substance on
top of when you're already messed up.
Yeah. Now, the theory that I'm operating on in my research is that people use substances with either a implicit motive or a kind of motive that they couldn't necessarily articulate at the time. but they're doing it for an effect, right? So you drink for an effect or the taste or whatever. But if you're using both substances, you're probably drinking. You're probably looking to get buzzed. And so what happens, I think, with the marijuana is you feel the effects pretty quickly. Alcohol can have a lag, or does have a lag, from the time you drink it to the time you feel it. And so you start feeling more, you feel the effect, you get to the desired state quicker when you smoke first. When you're drinking, a thing tends to happen, and I've studied this as well, is let's say you go out with the motive to get a little bit buzzed. And then let's say you've actually, just ate some tacos or something, right? And so you drink a couple drinks really quick, and you're not feeling anything. Well, that alcohol is sitting on the food in your stomach. So then you're like, shit, I got to drink more to get the effect I want to get to.
Right.
And you end up overshooting. Because that alcohol starts hitting your system, but by then you've already got 4 drinks in you. And that's so, when that tends to happen, when those things tend to happen, people's motivations kind of go out the window. Right. And they end up drinking more than they intended. And then it's like a feedback loop, right? Your inhibitions are gone, you're trying to keep that buzz going, and you drink more and more. And then if you're throwing smoke in there, marijuana in there, at some point, you're just compounding the problem.
Right.
Because you're just adding another substance on top of something that you're already buzzed with.
Unless you get the munchies and eat.
That,
Then that could help the alcohol side of it.
So there's a ton of there's a ton of research that needs to be done here.
Right. Yeah.
Another thing that you get on the crossfaded thing is people say they don't get as bad of hangovers when they're crossfaded.
Yeah, which is interesting to me because I would think it would be so much worse.
Right, and we're not really sure, but you don't really get marijuana hangovers.
No, being a legal patient in the state of California, have had, done edibles screw me up more than anything else, and I've woken up still baked as hell, and that's like that's when it's like, okay, too much, that's where it kind of gets gross for me anyway.
Yeah, edibles are hard to control.
Yeah.
They affect people different. I've never liked the feeling of that.
Me neither.
It's just but some people really like it.
Some people don't like smoking. They don't like their lung.
It's a different sensation too, right? Because one's head high, body high thing. Like, what's the difference between that?
Yeah, well, so you got 2 strains of marijuana, and again, this is a little out of my wheelhouse, but you got indica and sativa. So indica is more of a body high, sativa is more of a head high. That's a good question, though. I don't know if you eat sativa or ingest it, that you get more of that body high. The few times I've done edibles, though, you do kind of, the first thing you feel is like this wave of like something coming on.
Yeah. In what me and you have discussed previously, I feel like the reason why edibles can be so dangerous from time to time is there's some stoned ass guy putting a dropper on a brownie or a cookie and squeezes a little too much and is like, oops,
let that go.
Yeah, so what, they get more high, like whatever, and it's like, so that there's room for error there too with the
Yeah, I don't know. There's probably not a lot of regulation in what you actually get out of the dispensaries. There's some regulation, but I don't know if it says there's 10 grams of THC, if it's really 10 grams.
Yeah, right.
I don't know how much lab testing goes into that. And then, like you said, if your doofus roommate's making brownies or cookies.
Hot brownies, right.
With a big thing of THC oil and,
one side of the platter has more than the other.
Oh, yeah.
What's happened to him?
I've had, a really bad cookie experience in
300
Ohio.
milligrams.
That's crazy.
It was crazy. I actually hallucinated on that one. It was bad.
So, yeah, you ask one.
It was kind of got brought up in your answer with Chris's. Is like sometimes when people are drinking, they don't feel a buzz. It's like, oh, I'll take a shot. Is that just the booze, like a fuse? It's like it's being processed. So you think you're not catching a buzz.
Yeah. So it takes a little while to get into your system, right? And it has to do with a lot of different things and physiological kinds of things. But if you're tired, you sometimes feel it sooner. If you're dehydrated, you feel it sooner. If you've eaten, it delays it. And so we used to always tell people when we were doing prevention stuff, don't drink on an empty stomach. It's still a good rule, but you got to understand that if you eat a huge meal and you're trying to get buzzed and you're drinking during that whole meal, that alcohol is not in you yet, right? And then at some point it's all going to hit you. And so and it's funny because you guys are too young, but at my age you have these dinner parties and people are drinking wine and not paying attention, and it happens pretty regularly where someone will stand up from the dinner table and go, "Oh, I didn't know how," because they felt totally fine, talking fine when they're eating, but they're drinking and eating at the same time, and then all of a sudden it all hits.
Okay, so this was a question that I was wondering that I've kind of asked you before, but there's been a couple times where I've had a couple drinks and it's been on days, it's spring season, right? And allergies are bad. So sometimes I'll take a Claritin D in the morning, and I just noticed this pattern from the last time I did it, but I was just, I don't remember the night because of Claritin D. I was just blacked out. And I had like a couple drinks.
Yeah, so there's drug interactions with alcohol on a lot of different drugs and a lot of over-the-counter drugs, and so all that little fine print shit on the box is actually important.
We don't look at it.
Right.
No one looks at it.
Well, I'd have to put on my Hubble telescope readers to even see the shit. But cold medicine often has either pseudoephedrine in it, a Sudafed type thing, or some other kind of drug, and I don't know what's in Claritin D.
I think antihistamine of sorts.
So there's an interaction. There's some drug interaction there, and that's probably what's going on. Is you're getting kind of, to use your term, crossfaded, but with a prescription drug.
Want to be crossfaded with accidental.
So
it's scary though.
It basically potentiates the effect of alcohol.
Right, but you gotta watch it, and it's weird because I really didn't catch that trend until the last time it happened, and then thinking back like a year or two ago, I'm like, that could have happened back then. That could have been a day I took Claritin in the morning or something.
Yeah, and there's other things sometimes. Again, if you're really tired or you're dehydrated or you didn't eat enough. I mean, all those kind of physiological things can make that worse.
Right.
So,
as far as like drug interactions, what would be like the worst case scenario in terms of different substances to mix with? Just for anybody watching who's like not sure.
Yeah.
As to what's the worst?
That's a great question too. You really don't want to mix alcohol with any depressants. If you're gonna, you probably don't want to mix it with anything, right? Yeah. But if you're gonna do that, the smoking and drinking is probably a better. The marijuana and alcohol is probably a better thing to do than any other drug. So if you put a depressant in there, you actually get this potentiating effect where you can really get yourself in trouble quick, And so you hear, unfortunately, about these kids that'll drink 4 or 5 beers or something, take an oxy, and then never wake up.
Yeah.
And it's because you're basically dumping depressants on depressants.
Oh.
And there's more to it. Part of it is there's a phenomenon that if you're using depressants or a lot of alcohol, you get what's called cross tolerance, and so you have to take more of the substances to get the desired effect, and it makes it that much more dangerous.
Yeah, is that like similar to like what's happening with artists nowadays with certain drugs like codeine, lean, mixing that with stuff?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Where they have to use more to
Yeah.
get the same effect.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a thing with drugs where you talk about the active dose, and that's the dose it takes to get you high. And then as you build up tolerance, you require more and more of the substance to get to that active dose. And then a lot of drugs have a lethal dose, or most drugs have a lethal dose, and that's just what it says. It's the dose you need to kill you.
Oh man.
And as you become addicted to something, your active dose starts bumping up into your lethal dose range.
Alright.